Good evening. It's well past 9 o'clock. I'm not sure of the time. Don't really care. First, I want to give a shout out to John Alonzo on Long Island. Thanks. Apparently, you're in agreement with me on national. Although he's a liberal, and I'm a classical liberal. We're definitely in agreement apparently on a national health service. I think that's what he just sent me a little donation. I think that was his approval on the last video I made. And thank you, John, and I want to thank Dan Wolf for calling, and because I don't think I've ever talked about this will really drive a stake right in the heart of that blood-sucking bullet. It's back on. That's why. No, it's back off again. And we had a storm blow in. It was mostly a lot of wind, very electrical. And in this part, you can see across the street, they still have electricity, but this little strip here, even this building behind me, I thought it was a perfect time. They were having some bad actors over there at the Taco Bell. I think they had just come out and was about to leave, and then because it's completely shut off, it's that whole. I think it should be that this circuit is 7-Eleven, this building, Taco Bell, Jack in the Box, and the strip that includes the medical all the way to the AT&T. Anyway, the title of this, I really want to, because I don't think I ever mentioned that, because I've had a really complicated life I've had a bully that's been after me, and he doesn't realize that you really can't diminish my self-esteem, that you just can't. I don't care what you call me and stuff like that. Now I'm going to tell you the reason why. Is that back in 1995, it would have been actually April of last month. It would have been actually, I think April 1st was the day of performance, those 4 days of performance of the best dance troupe in Austin. They'd already won at least once, and after that performance, won again. At least I know they won at least twice in a row or 3 in a row. Tapestry. The lead male dancer was Nicholas Young, and the lead female was the lovely and gracious Felicity Weber. And I never forget, she's kind of disappeared. She was off with the woods. Anyway, I will try to not. But you're talking to somebody that early on in my career in cannabinoid research and science and stuff, I was been teaching since about 93 and 94 and in the spring of 95 this is fact, you can look it up. As a matter of fact, if you got the money, I'm sure you can obtain that video. Ooh, no, sorry I took my cap off. At least the rain has stopped. We only got about 1/10 of an inch. At the Helms Fine Arts Center at St. Stephen's School, beautiful building. Even that night, the Russian dancers from Ballet Austin showed up. They didn't know, because even I didn't know what the performance was going to be. I didn't even know because it's secret. They want to keep and I had been teaching for months. I had been teaching both, Nicholas and Felicity, who then would turn around and was teaching and conveying all this stuff that I've been conveying. That's why I brought it up, is that I think it was March 28th or March 29th, 30th, April 1st and 2nd, they performed 6 dances, of which all of that thematically came out of my mouth. I'm doing this special because when I realized when I finished with Dan, I didn't tell him that the title of the presentation, All in the Game, was directly from my statements that I've been saying for decades. This is 30 years ago. This is from the dates I just gave you of 1995. I had just beginning on television, and for this whole county, Warner Cable, Channel 16. Rapidly becoming the hottest. Same time Alex Jones started, actually. We were about at the same time as that moron. It was one of the most beautiful nights of my life. The Helms Fine Arts Center, I was wearing a bear claw bolo tie that I'd made out of the bear claw and silver and a bolo. And it wasn't dressed up. I was wearing the objet d'art. I was wearing a turquoise, malachite, and cocoa bolo dagger hung right in the front where my dick is, which is the standard for a lot of cultures and stuff. And actually, when they told me later and stuff, because they didn't know when I was coming, and Nicholas said he turned to Felicity. He said, "Kent's here tonight. He's here." He said, and they boom, out it came. The title of the six the six dances, the whole the evening was all in the game, because I've been saying this for 35, 40 years, is that people say life is a game and it's all in the game. No, life is a test, not a game. It's a test of character, and that was the play on words there. They were trying to. That's what the whole theme, even down to at the end towards one of the dances, was all about. Drug use and abuse and all sorts of stuff, and even about peace and putting down the rifle. It's the one where they allowed the guest choreographer, who's the head of Ballet Austin, a Cypriot. I think they used to call them Greek Cypriots, but they're Cypriots and stuff. And all he did was that he did the dance master, taps time with a big long stick, and I was even used that in some of my lectures to them, stuff that everything that I had told them, they had transformed it into motion. I want to describe the first dance, in which I was telling them about the homoeroticism of football and all this sort of stuff. I was teaching them about the color purple. I had given them copies of The Wisdom of Insecurity by Alan Wilson Watts, and a copy of Kip Thorne's book, Einstein's, Black Holes and Time Warps, Einstein. I was doing all. I was teaching about cannabinoid science, because I was just on the verge. I hadn't yet at that point figured out that I was just right about there, being sure that cannabis would cure cancer. This was just before that. I already had so much. I'd already drawn crowds of at that point. No, that was later. Okay. Let me get on with the description. The first number was actually all the females were dressed in football attire, and they were doing like a Scottish jig with the hands over the head and the stuff, and they came out, and they took up the scrimmage line. They went down and stuff, and Felicity was, of course, the quarterback and stuff. And I know that they can't see me because of the stage lights and stuff. And she put her hands up to do the jig, and they got in formation. And she put her hands in the center's crotch. And then she took her left hand. They lined up at about a 45-degree angle to the stage front and the audience, so the audience could see the whole lineup and stuff. And it wasn't a full. Was it a full 11? No, I don't. I think it was, may have been one. Anyway. And then Felicity, after she takes position and hands up, she actually pegs me right in the audience. And I had brought gay Rufus black gay Rufus Jones with me, was accompanying. I asked him to accompany because actually at the time Nicholas's mother was my girlfriend, and she swung both ways, baby. People really don't know me. A lot of you think I really have horrible thoughts about gay people, but I've really been tolerant all my life because I'm a student of the human soul. You have to be tolerant at least up to a point I'm just kind of getting tired of people trying to kill me just because I'm straight and white and whatever, Jew or something like that. I think I'm one of the least racist person you'll ever meet. Least prejudiced. You can't be a scientist and be a prejudiced. But I'll get on with it because I like to describe this point. And cyberbully, eat your heart out. They're never going to dance your life. This is the best dance troupe in Austin, Texas. Look it up. I just gave you the exact dates, the name, the location, everything. And then she pegs me in the audience because I'm a few rows up. I rarely ever accept. I bought for the Tibetan monks, before or after that. No, it was before because I had the objet d'art, the knife, the turquoise malachite knife, and we had already gone to see the Tibetan monks and stuff. Where they had the color, they had just a few hundred. Anyway, she looks up and pegs me just precisely. I was a few rows back, but fairly close to center, But, and then she pulls her left hand out. I'm left-handed, and she rubs the center's ass, female center's ass and stuff, and then they finish up and stuff. And then they go behind the curtains and quick, costume change, and then out comes, and it was all, you can look this all up. That's every dance in there thematically came from me. Dancers are great at dancing. They were voted best in the town in Austin for years. But they're sometimes short of thematic material to work on. But that entire thing, you have no idea the kind of the rush of emotion I had when I realized that they were dancing my life and my treatment and the pain and the anguish, all kind of, it was very deep and complex. If you really didn't know the troupe and stuff like that, it may have been kind of a mystery to you, but as I recall, they won again Best Troupe that year for that series of performances at Helms Fine Arts Center, St. Stephen's. So you take your best shot, bully boy. You jack around with, attack Wednesday Kennedy down there. You're nobody. You're a faceless, nameless, low IQ, cowardly bully. And I've been out in the front. I've been, I've lectured without amplified voice to crowds of 5,000 on the West Mall, bigger than any of the Hollywood people. And stuff, it's because I was talking about a subject that everybody loves, which is cannabis. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit of my speech defect coming to me. Don't like lately how my upper lip's moving. Everything I've said was 100% true and correct, and you can check. If you can locate Nicholas Young and Felicity Weber and find actually a copy of the performance of the All in the Game, which it was just black and white, and it was kind of, and I had the program, stuff like that, even, it's now I guess in possession of my brother Ralph, and I don't give a fuck, because I've had people dance this kind of the story of my life, and especially the things that I teach in psychology and human sexuality and psychosexuality, and also in drugs use and abuse. And there's a difference. It's every part of that came out of me, even down to keeping the time. The one that I can't remember his name. He was head of. He was, I think, a Cypriot. They would either call him a Greek or Greek Cypriot, but I think he was a Cypriot. And he was the guest choreographer that year because they were the best dance troupe in Austin. So, take your best shots at me, bully boy. You're not going to get anywhere. I love me. I've done a lot of good things. I've taught a lot of people a lot of shit. And it's because other people did it for me, too. And, and this was like my own success was a collaborative effort with me and Dr. Rick Musty, now deceased, RIKMUSTY. Look him up, the co-founder of the International Cannabinoid Research Society. You can't touch me, dude. You're a loser, hiding in the shadows, playing little boy jerk-off games. You're just not in my league. I might be an old guy sitting on a bench under an awning, and now I've got a one-eyed car illuminating me a little bit more. You're just not going to make a dent in this, this old turtle shell. I just keep on plugging along, but mentally I'm light years ahead of you. I always will be. You're one of the most infantile people I've ever run into. You're the kind of people that I was warning and teaching them to avoid and what to look for, and and stuff. It was, and that was even the year that they had slightly altered, and it was like the 30th edition of Alan Wilson Watt's The Wisdom of Insecurity, that had a purple and green patch. At first started off just as squares, and then they turned more into a male-female kind of interlocking that year in the 32nd. There's slight variations over those at that point in '95 was the 32nd edition. I'm sure there's been one every year. It sells out every year. So you don't. Most of you will never have the thrill of knowing having what is now one of the hottest and best known cities on this planet to have what was for a period the top ranked dance troupe in the town. I'm getting a split screen right in the middle. There's a slight little variation right there. I think it's because of that vehicle. But anyway, yeah, good luck with it. It was a great performance. It was awesome. Afterwards, I talked to Felicity and her mother and or I think it's her stepfather or whatever it is. And then they went their way, and then I took Nicholas and his mother out for a bite to eat and stuff like that. And actually, I even regret this. If you're watching Nicholas, I should have kept my mouth shut. I said, dude, you were just flawless and stuff. There was only a pro could have caught it, and that's what it was, that the only flaw in your emotions was, but that was his job. And that's what I tried to tell you, is I knew it was your job to watch out for the end of the stage. They were doing a movement towards the front of the stage, and somebody had to, and he has glaucoma. That's why and he had on his contacts and stuff. They're irritating. The house lights are in your eyes, and it was his job, with him and Felicity in front of that mass of people moving forward, to watch and then stop them before they went off the edge of the stage. And I said, the only thing that's, but nobody can really, you actually have to take that one little brief, a tenth of a second to just, his eye movements went from perfect. I said that was the only, out of that entire, every movement, everything was beautiful. It was really flawless and stuff. I said, that's the only one I could tell right there. But see, that's it. He was headed for a pro. He did do was working on commercial work. Felicity went off to something like the Woods dance troupe or something at Houston or something like that. And then I lost track with her. I couldn't find her on social media anywhere. And that's what happens over a 30-year period from 95 to 2025 is people go their separate ways and stuff like that. But I'm so proud that at one point in my life that I was so impressed so many young people that they created 6 dances to describe and portray my life and my teachings. So to my bully boy and stuff like that, dude, you really haven't got a chance of making the slightest dent in this enormous ego and stuff. So I have high self-esteem. Power's out again. I'm the last living cell in a dead body. That was actually Maury Amsterdam, I think it was, or Dick Van Dyke, and that was a lifetime ago. Dude, I was teaching them all about performing. That's Bruno. We are past 3 inches. Phew, I'm lucky. I got a 10th. Bruno's already got 3. 1.4 yesterday. Okay. I'm staying pretty. So their vegetation is going to do well. We're going to be in trouble again around here. Yeah, I got a dude that's been riding my ass for like 660 days now. Drought gone at our place. It's not giving me the whole message. That's the way it works. So it's up to speed. It's for him. We're still officially drought here. So yeah, it's creeping up on 20 minutes here, but I'll put the title up there, and if you have the time, you want to check. Every word that I have said in this video is 100% true, and like I said, you can check with them. That was my themes, and that was they knew it. They got it all from me. And I didn't even really, we didn't spend a lot of time talking about it. They did it. They performed it. They danced my life. When I was telling Dan Wolf about it, I was really choking up about remembering those beautiful young people. And I told him, you have to deal with this, in the performing arts and stuff like that, whether it's football or dancing, whatever you do, you have to be attractive to both sexes. And I understand why there's this kind of this gay undercurrent in the theater and in Hollywood and stuff like that, is that any kind of a performer has to usually, be, physically or characteristically be sexually attractive to both sexes. You can't just play it one way. You're liable to not truly become a great. I was trying to give them good sound advice in which but there's so much competition in that field. Let's get real. Despite their success, I don't know where they're at now and stuff. I really don't have the time to search for them. If either of you hear of it, this is a channel you can reach me through, or who knows, they might be watching anyway. I have a lot of people that watch, and actually most of my viewers don't subscribe. Anyway, you let me know, Mr. Bully Boy, when they dance your life. Because actually I was about your age. I was 95. It's like a lifetime ago. It's 30 years ago, so I was creeping up on 40. Yeah, I was hitting 40. That's my bully's age range, is 35 to 40, based on voice, appearance, all, So let's see if you ever can get somebody to take your words and take your life and pay homage to it and turn it into motion. It ain't gonna happen. And any of you don't believe me, look it up. Tapestry Dance Company, All in the Game, 1995, Helms Fine Arts Center, St. Stephen's School. It's actually a school. It's a lovely facility, but at night you can't see all of it, but it was a lovely auditorium. Limestone and a good tall roof and stuff. And the Russian dancers were there that night and stuff, and they were really looking at me with the bear claw, the Russian bear, and the knife. I was really a little bit over the top in my costume there, a little bit. I had on like a hunter's kind of vest, but with like a turquoise colored silk shirt and slacks. I had on like, I think, a pair of tan, one of my favorite, tan Nautica French over pleat is a reverse pleat. I looked pretty sharp, but I wasn't very expensive and none of that stuff. At that point in time, China was dumping silk shirts on the market for super cheap. They had been making them for years and stockpiling them to just destroy take over the market. And I had about 40 of them at that point because wore them all the time because they were comfortable. But everything I've said is 100% true. So help me God. I just sworn under oath, so good luck. Good luck, Mr. Bully. Good luck in trying to make a dent in my self-esteem. You're just not going to do it. I know who I am. I'm Kent Kruger. And you know what? A lot of people have loved me in my life and told me so. My parents never had to tell me because they were there doing it. You don't have to tell somebody you love them. You just have to be with them all the time and just have that little gleam in your eye when you look at them. You know what I'm saying? I'll see you guys later. It appears the rain is over. And the lights are still out in this section. It's all street lights and stuff, but they start up again over there. It's weird how this place is wired and stuff. Like the business lights will stay on, but the street lamps will go out after a lightning strike. But I didn't hear a lightning arrestor pop or anything. But we're out. Well, I finally got around to telling that story. I got a lifetime of stories like that. The great thing about it is it's true, and it's 100% provable. It's none of your, because for the '73 season in the Aggie records, when I resigned, they really went through and purged and erased it. They really there's almost no record of me except for the materials that I had saved. There's almost nobody else saved them. They just really, he's pointed that out, is they done a pretty good, because it embarrassed the hell out of them. They have one of the last of the Kruger brothers reject A&M and resign from football and keep from making a big legend. 3 Texas Aggies, beat the Olsen brothers at LA, but playing together. I was giving clear signal to San Francisco that there would just be a knockdown drag out. Is that Charlie and Rolf could get along together, the 3 of us, it wasn't going to work. And I just really had no desire to keep up with that endless life of violence. And then I stepped back right into it. But I was well paid for it. Y'all have a good night. I'm sorry I've taken up so much of it. I thought you might enjoy a little bit of history that few people recall, but except for the dance professionals around here. It was 30 years ago. It was over by, it's March and April. It was over last month. It was 30 years ago last month, and the end of March. That's what I think. Last 2 days of March and the first 2 days of April was the. So, yeah, if you want to call me a liar, you go ahead and look it up later.